You can use these 5 objects to help improve different parts of your snooker technique, and a lot of them will even work from your own home. However, not all of them are as simple as sticking your cue into a bottle. Welcome back, and it's your first time watching one of our videos, and it's fantastic to have you here. Training equipment for snooker doesn't have to be expensive. In fact, these 4 ordinary everyday items and a giant ball bearing can probably help improve your game more than expensive equipment. So if you haven't got too dizzy, let's look at how a 500 gram steel ball can help you.
This is a 2-inch or 5cm ball bearing, and it's near enough that it makes no difference, the same size as a regular snooker ball, but the important thing is it's shiny.
It helps with something that snooker players themselves won't be able to see they're doing wrong, and I'm getting wrong on this very shot. And that's cueing across the ball. I'm not aiming straight at the red here, my cue is at an angle, but because I'm playing it with a small amount of side spin, I'm still able to pot the red.
And that works completely fine if you hit the shot at exactly the right pace. But if you don't, you're just simply going to miss. And that's where this thing comes in.
As I said before, it's important that it's shiny so you can see how straight you're lining the shot up using the reflection.
Getting this to work is quite simple. You line up for a target, say that pocket over there, and then you simply go down with a shot and try and get the reflection in the ball to match up to what your cue's doing so it makes a straight line. And once you've done that, you can come back off the shot and try and get back in exactly the same position as you were before. So you get down, make the straight line, and then you can just see how straight you actually play it. And it seems to work every time.
Obviously you're not going to be able to play anything with power because the ball's incredibly heavy, but after just a few shots of playing the ball across the table, you should be able to tell where your cue needs to be to play a shot exactly straight.
Now the balls don't have much grip, so if you hit it really low it's going to miss cue, so you can't actually do that. And if you strike it too high, you won't be able to see where your cue's reflecting. So unfortunately you do have to hit it only just below centre, but if you do that it gives you a really good idea of not just where the middle of the cue ball is or the middle of the reflective silver ball is, in exactly the same way that this marked cue ball does, but it also lets you know if you're cueing up to the ball straight, so you can see exactly where you need to strike it and if you're cueing up straight. This is the only thing on the list that isn't an everyday item, and you do ideally need 2 of them to play a proper shot. However, they only cost about £10 each, and I'll put a link in the description of where I bought them from.
In case there are people out there like Daniel from Marburg, Germany who are interested in giving this sort of thing a try. But if you want something easier to get your hands on to help improve your cueing, then a small bottle may be able to help you. All you need to do is take the lid off, lie it down flat on the table and try and push your cue cleanly into the neck of the bottle. If you pull your cue all the way back and push it all the way forward, this can be relatively good practice.
I'm going to spend as little time as possible on this because although it's a relatively good idea, almost everybody's heard of it. All you got to do is play a shot straight through the Coke bottle. Try not to make contact with the sides. It does get slightly harder the further back you go and the later it... If you want to make it a little bit harder, you can move back a bit so you get into the neck of the bottle later in your shot. And of course this is one of the best ways you can actually practice from home. Although if you do want to make sure that the table's roughly at the right height, and that's about 32 to 33 inches off the ground. If you're too far out it will actually harm your game. So what you want to do is find some books just to get the table to a better height.
You can even adapt it to practice shots where you'd be bridging down on a ball by placing the lid under the front of the bottle, or if you want to practice screw shots you could simply place the lid under the back of the bottle so the neck of the bottle will be lower. Even so, it's probably the least helpful thing on this list.
Nothing too dramatic, but a tried and tested way of practicing your cueing. Our next item, however, is none of those things.
In the past you may have seen sheets of paper placed on the table to help practice positional shots.
Like this, but that's not what we're doing. What we're doing instead is using a square of piece of paper to help us line up any shot. Honestly, I think this is one of the greatest things I've ever created. It's a square piece of paper 5.2 centimeters in length with a fold halfway down it and a straight line halfway down the other direction.
This will make it exactly the same width as a regular snooker ball, so when you fold it in half, it forms a physical target where you can aim your cue for the centre line, and then you can see the left side of the cue ball stay inside the left edge of the paper and the right side of the cue ball stay inside the right edge of the paper, which shows you how accurately you played the shot.
But this thing can do something far better than that.
Because it's so light and has no impact on the cue ball whatsoever, you can use it as a target to line up shots. All you need to do is leave it in the right place with the line pointing at the cue ball.
Now if you don't know how to line shots up properly, which is harder than it sounds, there's a video in the card that explains exactly how to do that. But if you do, this can help you pop almost any ball.
When you know where you've got to aim, it's definitely a lot easier. However, it is a little bit fiddly getting the piece of paper exactly in the right place, especially if you've got to play the shot from distance. So how can you be certain you've lined up the shot correctly? Well, unfortunately, the trouble is, you can't.
Even if I strike the cue ball directly over the centre of this piece of paper, I may still miss the black. But at least I know why I'm going to miss it. Because I'm going to be able to see if I strike the cue ball directly over the piece of paper, if I hit my target or not. And that means I can also tell when I play the shot if I've lined it up correctly. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, when I miss a shot, I seem to be lining it up wrong. I'm hitting across the centre of the piece of paper exactly right almost every single time. And this just means I'm a lot more confident in my cueing at the moment, but if I wasn't, I could use this to help me cue straighter.
If we make some small adjustments to this cardboard tube, it can help us understand our cueing a little bit better. If we make 2 slots just wide enough for the cue to fit through just behind our bridge hand, we can use it in a similar way to the bottle earlier with some significant advantages.
Because you can actually play a shot through this and it can give you some invaluable feedback if your cue comes into contact with it in any way.
If your cue comes into contact with the cardboard, this is likely to be caused by your shoulder moving either to the left or the right when you're delivering your cue. However, if it comes into contact with the back of the cardboard, this is likely to be caused by horizontal movements of your wrist. It's not always easy to see, but it can be valuable information.
The fatter the tube is, the better the feedback it will give. And if the openings are just big enough for your cue, when you play a shot full power, you'll be able to see exactly what goes right or what goes wrong. In that case, I hit the front outside edge. So my cue would have just slightly been forced out that way by my shoulder. So I can see exactly what went wrong.
It's worth then just repeating this until you can consistently deliver the cue in a straight line.
But what if your cueing's fine? What if the problem is how you're sighting a ball?
Well, don't worry, because after we find Sam from the Isle of Wight, we've got a solution for that as well. And it all involves this cap and a piece of string.
When you go to play a shot, you're not always looking straight down your cue. And even if I get everything right on this shot, there's no guarantee that I'm going to do that on the next one. So here's a solution to that. All you need to do is tape a bit of string right to the very edge of your cap that's just long enough to hang down to your cue.
You can then place it on your head, but because you've got 2 eyes, when you stare at the balls, you'll see something along the lines of this. It's then vital that you manoeuvre the cap until you have a straight shot centred right in the middle of what looks to you like 2 pieces of string.
So I've got the string centred in the middle of my vision right now, so when I go to play a shot, the string should drop on top of my cue. So if it doesn't, I'm going to have to change something.
You can then either twist or rotate your head until the string drops perfectly in the centre of your cue. This should take into account how you individually sight the ball and allow you to see right down the line of your cue. Just make sure that your back and neck are in a relaxed position, because if not, this can cause stiffness and pain and even stop you delivering the cue properly.
So now it feels a little bit weird, but it's in the right place and it feels comfortable. So it's just a case of getting used to this.
Normally if you try something like this, you won't be able to keep your head in exactly the same place every single time. The string allows you to achieve this and means you can mostly ignore it and concentrate on the game.
I reckon with a week of practice I'll fully get used to it and it'll completely change the way I see the shots, hopefully for the better.
Just be aware this is a very easy thing to get horribly wrong, so if it's not working after a short space of time, it's something you should definitely abandon.
I think this is the only way to check that your head is consistently in the right place, and I wouldn't try and change the way I sight the ball without it.
And I wouldn't suggest anybody else did either, not even Rick from Arbroath, Scotland.
All of these items are helpful in different ways. You can even use some of them together, and I think it's only the aiming paper that you actually need a snooker table to be able to use.
And if you're able to take full advantage of these simple objects, who knows how much it could help your game or what shots you'd be able to play. So if you want to know how to play some of the toughest shots in the game, then why not have a look at these two videos. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.